Hi guys, BBG here with another sew along. So one of my favorite things to do is to take different patterns and combine them. In the sewing world, we call that Franken-patterning. So I very often will find a pattern that I love the bodice, the top part, but don't necessarily either like the bottom part, or let's say it's a dress and I want the top of it, but I want the bottom pants. So I like to take two different patterns and then braid at the waist, and usually it works just fine. So today, that's what I'm gonna do. Now, I haven't already made this, so you're sort of just going along for the ride. But I'm sure it's gonna work out, so don't worry about it. I'm gonna be using New Look 6554 for the bottom part. Now, I've made this jumpsuit twice, right? The pattern that I'm using for it, and I love the way the bottoms fit. The pants fit really nice. It's the perfect flare, and I already know they fit, so it's a go-to. Now for the top, I've already done the top that came with it twice already, so I wanted to mix it up. And I made McCall's 7686, which is an off-the-shoulder top, and I made it during, I think it was my blue and white collection. And I loved that shirt so much. And I thought, you know, that would be really cute as the top to the bottom of New Look to make a jumpsuit. So that's what we're gonna be doing today. Let's get started. All right, guys, so for McCall 7686, I'm gonna be making view E. And then for the bottom portion, I'm using New Look 6554, and I'm using the pants, not the long maxi. So let's go over the pieces you're going to need. So for New Look 6554 for the pants, we're only using pattern piece number 4 and 3, which is the back of the pants and the front of the pants. Okay, so that's the only thing you need to cut out for that. Then for view E on McCall's, we're gonna be cutting out the following for our bodice. So we're gonna cut out pattern piece number 13. This is the collar. And then pattern piece number 12, this is the front collar and back collar. Then we're also going to be using our sleeve pattern, which is pattern piece number 10. And then we're going to be using the back and front pieces of our top, which is 8 and 9. Now, I will show you that I shortened my top because this is going to be a jumper. And as a blouse, it comes down pretty low. So I just held this up against my body to see where I wanted it to end, that it would give me still enough of a fold over once I attached my pants to it. So I just sort of eyeballed that against my body and then folded in what I didn't need, and then I cut here, okay? So that's why you see the folded pieces. And then just make sure that when you do that to the front and back pieces, that they still match up from the underarm to where you're ending. Now, once you have all of your pieces cut, we can start sewing. All right, we're gonna start with the bodice. So grab your front and back piece, and with right sides facing, I'm just gonna lay one over the top of the other, and then I'm gonna pin my sides. So I'm working with stripes. I don't know why I make things difficult on myself. So I'm gonna be making sure that I'm pinning and aligning my stripes. Okay, now you're gonna go ahead and pin the other side the same way, and then you're gonna go to your sewing machine and you're just gonna stitch down your side seams using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. You're gonna do both side seams. Okay, so I've sewn my side seams, I pressed my seams, I turned it right side out. I'm gonna set this aside for just a second. Grab your sleeves. With right sides together, you're gonna go ahead and fold and pin down your underarm seam. You're gonna do that for both of your sleeves. And now take that to the sewing machine and stitch down using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, once you have your sleeves sewn, go ahead and give it a good press. Now you're gonna go ahead and pin the sleeves to our bodice. So I've already serged all my seams as I've been sewing, so if you haven't finished your seams, go ahead and make sure you finish your seams. And what you're gonna do is you're going to make sure that you're pinning the single notch to the single notch and the double notch to the double notch. So find the corresponding sleeve. Okay, I'm gonna pin first, matching my underarm seam to my side seam. And then pin your single notch and your double notch. Okay, you're gonna pin your other sleeve the same way, and then we're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, we're gonna be sewing in a U shape, so back stitch at the beginning and at the end. You're gonna sew your other sleeve the same way. Okay, so we have our sleeves attached. Set this aside, and you're gonna grab your collar. And with right sides facing, we're going to go ahead and pin at the sides. Now you're gonna pin the other one the same way. We're gonna stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. While we're at the machine, we're also going to finish off the bottom hem of our collar. Okay, so I did my side seams. I went ahead and pressed under my hem allowance for my collar, and I'm just going to stitch. I press it so that I can stitch on the right side. I don't want my bobbin thread to be on the right side of my fabric. You're going to continue on until you've sewn your entire hem. All right, we're going to go ahead and attach our off-the-shoulder collar to our shirt. So in the pattern instructions, it has you attaching it so that the wrong side of the collar is on the right side of the shirt, but I don't like the way it's finished on the inside, so I'm going to do it a little bit differently. So what we're going to do is we're going to be placing the collar inside of our shirt, and we want the right side of the collar to be on the wrong side of the shirt, okay? So the right side of the collar on the wrong side of the shirt, so on the inside. And go ahead and pin, matching your notches and your dots. Okay, now you're gonna go to your sewing machine and you're going to stitch these together using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, once we have it attached, what we're gonna do is we're going to stitch again. So from the top edge, we're going to create a casing by stitching 1/4 of an inch away from the edge, and we're going to leave enough room in the middle to put through our 3/8 of an inch elastic. Okay, so 1/4 inch away from the edge of my fabric, I'm gonna stitch all the way around, and I'm going to leave about a 1 inch opening. Okay, I'm going to stop 1 inch short of where I started stitching and backstitch. Now you're going to take your elastic and put a safety pin through one tip, and you're going to go ahead and sift it through your casing. You're going to go all the way around until your elastic comes out of the opening again. Make sure that you don't lose the tail end inside of your casing. Okay, you're going to grab the two ends. I'm going to stitch them together. And then once you pull it inside, go ahead and close out your opening. Okay, so we're looking at the right side of our shirt, and if you look on the inside, you'll see our collar. So if you notice, the reason I do it this way is so that the raw seam is on the outside, and then when I turn over my collar, the way it's supposed to be, I have a very clean finish both on the outside and on the inside of my shirt. Now, we're almost done with our top. The only thing that you'll have left to do is to do the hem of your sleeves, but you could do that at the end. Now we're going to go ahead and put together our pants and then attach our pants to our bodice at the waist. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and sew together the back crotch and the front crotch, and then we'll sew our inseam and side seams. So grab both of your back pieces, and with right sides facing, go ahead and pin along the crotch, matching up your notches. Okay, you're gonna pin your front crotch the same way, and then you're gonna take it to the sewing machine and you're just gonna stitch both using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, once you have your crotch sewn together, both your front and your back, place them right sides facing, and we're going to go ahead and pin our inseam. So I've already pinned one leg. And you want to make sure that you match up your seams, your crotch seams. And then if you're just so happen to be working with stripes like I am, make sure you're matching your stripes all the way down your inseam. Once you have your entire inseam pinned, you're going to go ahead and stitch in one continuous stitch, starting at the bottom of one leg, up through the crotch, and down the other leg using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, once you have your inseam sewn, you're going to pin your side seams the same way, and you're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. You're going to do both of your side seams. Okay, once you have your side seams sewn, go ahead and turn your pants right side out, and now we're going to go ahead and attach our bodice to our pants. So I'm just going to basically fold this over, and I'm going to pin first the side seam of my pants to the side seam of my top. Right sides are facing each other. I'm going to continue pinning around. The width of my bodice at the bottom is a little wider than my pants, but I'm working with a knit fabric. It's a rib knit, so I'm just going to stretch and pull. It's not that much pulling, so it's not all that noticeable. Okay, now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and stitch all the way around using a 1-inch seam allowance. Okay, so now that we have our bodice and our bottoms attached, if you turn it to the right side, we're going to press the seam allowance up towards the bodice, okay? And so the reason we're going to do that is because we're going to create a casing. And so if we're pressing our seam allowance up towards the top, right, here's our seam allowance, we're going to stitch on the right side all the way around, leaving a 1/2 inch wide area in the middle so that we can insert our elastic. So I like to press it and then turn my jumpsuit to the right side. I'm going to head over to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch all the way around. Okay, so I'm starting at a side seam. Now you can feel, okay, you can feel a little bump here from where our seam allowance is. I'm keeping the edge of my presser foot along where that ridge is, where I can feel it. And that's going to give me just over a 1/2 inch of space for me to insert my elastic. I'm going to stop stitching a 1/2 inch, an inch from where I started stitching. And you use your finger to feel for where you are and make sure that you're not sewing off of your seam allowance, and also that it's nice and flat. Okay, I'm going to stop an inch before I get to where I started stitching, and I'm going to backstitch. And now just the same way that you did for our collar, you're going to insert your elastic through the opening. Okay, I went ahead and stitched my elastic together, same as we did for the collar. Go ahead and pull it through. Give it a couple of tugs to distribute it evenly. Close out your opening, and the only thing left for you to do is to finish the hem of your pant leg and the hem of your sleeve. Once you finish the hem of your pant leg and your sleeves, you are all done. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that sew along and feel more adventurous to try this on your own. Mixing patterns is always fun, and usually if you could get a good grade at that waist, it usually is a good indication that you'll end up with a wearable product. So if you're not already following me on Instagram, follow @MimiGStyle. Until next time, peace.